Hello, everyone. Hi. Good evening. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to a new episode of Scranton Fringe Dialogue. Just bounded up the stairs. I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you. I want to thank all my guest hosts who stepped in, Dan Kimbrough, Simone Daniel, and all our special guests. I've been taking some time off to regroup, and it's been really, really fun. But we have a great episode for you tonight. And excuse me, I can't wait to begin. I'm going to use this moment just to remind you all that you can comment live in this conversation at any time, and we will respond to you. Whether it's just to say hello, whether you have a question, whether you want to join the dialogue, we encourage you to do so. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our first guest for the evening. We have two wonderful guests for you. First, we have Tonyehn Verkitus. Tonyehn is the executive director of the Lackawanna and Luzerne County Medical Societies. Her work in the nonprofit world has mostly centered on health and food, though she also spent many years training organizations and communities on fundraising and telling their mission-based stories. Storytelling is going to be a very big element of our conversations tonight. Tonyehn is interested in the intersection between personal stories, I could have just kept reading the bio, and community activism. As a person with many personal stories that shatter and empower, she has developed and facilitated workshops on healing and reducing personal trauma through self-care and shared stories. I am thrilled to welcome to the conversation. Please give a virtual round of applause to Tonyehn Verkitus. Hi, Tonyehn. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Super thrilled for you to be here. First time on the show, very first time, long time viewer, first time caller, and we are very excited to have you here. Let's start with just a simple question. How's your day been going today? What's been going on?
Good. It's Sunday, so I try to do the least amount possible. I did visit the new Groove Brewery this afternoon, so that was kind of cool.
Okay. Interesting. How was that?
It was nice. It's in Scranton. They have a cute little backyard. I just popped in for a second. But I enjoyed
Very cool. Excellent. Let's dive right in. So you've been working in the nonprofit world for quite some time. You've also been involved in the performing arts once upon a time. Can you give me a little bit of background on your professional background, professional training in a quick little nutshell?
Yeah, sure. So as far as nonprofit world goes, I started off with the American Cancer Society here. And around the same time, my family started a nonprofit called the Africa Community Exchange to support education in Liberia, because that's where my family is from. And during that time, I sat on many different boards. And then I worked for an organization that actually helped nonprofits to fundraise and tell their stories and facilitate volunteer engagement before I started working with the Medical Society. In terms of the arts, I was a dancer all through college, and after I studied sculpting for a while, but realized about 2 years in that it would make me just as much money as my English degree. So I figured rather than have more student loans, maybe I should actually try and find a profession of some sort.
I'm curious to know, because I truthfully don't know a ton about your dancing background, and we here at Scranton, of course, love the performing arts. What about dance attracted you, and what type of dance were you most fond of?
Definitely a modern dancer. Ballet had too many rules, and it was a little too restrained for me. What I loved about modern dance is pretty much the same thing that I love about English and words, right? Is that the body can tell a story. And it's amazing how the smallest movement can say so much. And I love the idea that someone would create movement that meant something to them, that was very natural for their body to do. And as a dancer, you had to not only learn their choreography, but embody that emotion. And to me, there was something about that that was just really beautiful.
So it sounds like you've been attracted to the power of storytelling since
my whole life. Yeah.
Is there any, and I'm going to be fully transparent with everyone, I haven't prepped you on all these questions, so it's okay if it's a little too esoteric or deep to move into. Is there a definitive, can you remember your first story? Can you remember, or the first time a story really like shook you or resonated with you in your life?
I can think of two things. So
Okay.
I remember writing my first poem when I was 5, and it was about a flower. And I remember it was kind of this circle of life thing because there was some flower in the yard that I liked and it died. So that was the first time that I told a story of some sort. And then when I was 9, I always read a lot, but for some reason, my father decided to read to me aloud Great Expectations.
Oh.
And there was something about having that book read to me that was just amazing. But my mother would give me literally a box full of books every Christmas when I was growing up. I mean, until college, maybe even after college. But that was always my favorite gift, was this box full of books.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about, we don't have to go into detail, you know, respect their privacy, but what was the family dynamic, you know, brothers, sisters, where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school?
That is a long story. It can take the whole hour. I have a younger brother and sister. They're 10 and 12 years younger than me. My mother is from Liberia, West Africa. She came here to go to college, married, had me, divorced. We went back when I was 7, and then she married my stepdad when I was 9. So we were there until I was about 13. We were back and forth, but living primarily there. And then we lived in the north and ended up in Richmond, Virginia.
Very cool. Very nice. Oh, that's your connection. I didn't know. And then where did you go? And then you went to school?
William and Mary.
William and Mary. I stand by one of the most beautiful campuses in the country.
That's how I ended up there. I had no desire to go. I was like, I don't want to go to this difficult school. And then I visited the campus and I was like, oh, but it's so pretty.
It's so beautiful.
It is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah.
What kind of, is there any definitive, is that where you began dancing, or were you already dancing before you got
Well, I danced in growing up, but it was difficult because my family moved a lot. So in 5th grade, I went to 3 different schools, but I switched 5 times, for instance. So for me, taking different types of lessons, it's like I'd get in, I'd start, and then we'd move. So I did take classes, but not very seriously. So it wasn't until college that I started dancing, and I joined the company. I was lucky enough to join the company my freshman year. And continued dancing. Yeah, they didn't accept me, of course. I was waitlisted, but then they needed more dancers, so I got to join the company. And after I went to VCU to study sculpting, they have an incredible dance program, so I started dancing there as well.
Awesome. Okay. I always like to try to get people's backstories, especially when there's an arts connection. So thank you for that. Yeah. So we'll flash forward to now. And you are the executive director of the Lackawanna and Luzerne Medical Societies. Can you give us a little bit of the elevator pitch on what that organization does, what its mission is, and where do you see, how do you define your role in outside of, you know, the more, you know, standard terms?
Yeah. So when I was hired as the executive director. Both medical societies, they are 2 separate organizations, are member-based organizations. And when I joined, they were very much focused on facilitating member education for physicians, doing different things for their members. And as an employee, when I started, I felt that's great, but now what can we do for our community as well? And for them, it was a little bit of a pivot, but they loved the idea. And so they very much were like, go fly, you know, spread your wings and let's do this. And through that, we became connected, first initially really strongly with the DA's office in Luzerne and working on opioid initiatives. And then I became a part of the STOP Coalition down there. I work on the Lackawanna Opioid Coalition. And it's just really expanded, and it's been kind of nice to see this organization become more of a part of the community than just this standalone organization that kind of serviced physicians. And we have changed our mission statement since I started, and we've made the health of the community part of our mission.
Fantastic. So with that being said, you and I have a very cool, I mean, I want to kind of an announcement. I guarantee you 100% of the people watching this haven't heard. So you and I have known each other for a while, and we've been having a long conversation of how can we work together. And I hate the concept of silver lining something because I think it minimizes the damage that's been done. But I will say that one of the cool things that we've, as organizations, have come out of or are coming out of COVID with is, exciting new programming in response to for me, at the Fringe, at least, we've had a long conversation about anything we do, even if we have to adapt or postpone or cancel, it's all good. We'll make it work. But I hate doing anything that feels like a compromise.
Right.
I hate, and I'm sure you're the same way, right? Like, I'm willing to do something different, but it still has to be good. Like, I'm not gonna, different's okay, bad is not. And I also I'm a big believer in that, like, sometimes not all art is designed for certain mediums. So if you can't do your art in the medium you wanted to, you may have to do something else, and that's okay. Exactly. So we're very excited to announce Scranton Fringe and the Lackawanna and Luzerne Medical Societies are partnering to create a podcast that hopefully will live on and on and on and on. To create this podcast, we are entitling, Tonyehn, would you like to announce?
Yes, Life and ... Because it will change every season depending on what the story we've decided to make the theme of our season.
Yes, and very much in theme with Scranton Fringe's Story Slam series that we inherited several years ago, and very, very grateful to, and we've been taking good care of it. All the stories are going to be told from the firsthand perspective of the person who experienced them. They have to be true and firsthand, experiences. You can yourself, if you're watching this, submit to be a storyteller. We're going to be discussing lots of themes, like Tonyehn said, over the history of the podcast, but our first season is going to primarily be focusing on substance use disorder and, more importantly, the destigmatization of that. Can you say a few words on that, Tonyehn?
Yeah. We have historically done, well, this year would have been our third year, a pain and addiction conference in partnership with Wilkes University and their pharmacy program. And obviously, by the name, we're speaking a lot about pain and addiction. And obviously, everyone knows that there is this whole opioid issue that's happening in our community. But part of what we did after having started this pain and addiction conference is we realized that there were other things needed in the community. The Stop Coalition came about. I did not start that, but I was lucky enough to become a member of that. And we realized it was a place to talk about these things. But the main thing that seemed to come up more than anything was stigma, right? Like, people don't want to tell anyone if they have a problem. They don't necessarily want to tell people if they're in recovery. They certainly don't want to discuss if they're on Suboxone or methadone. And there is this shame that's attached to these addictions. So how can we tell this story, get rid of the stigma, let people share their truth, their stories of recovery, and sometimes maybe the story doesn't have a happy ending if it's a parent whose child has passed away, but they still have a lot that they can share with us that would be helpful for someone else.
Yes. I think I just wanted to mention to everyone that if you're watching this live, and if you're not, it'll vary where it is, where you find it. But in the comments section, whether you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube from Scranton Fringe, you'll now see a comment with the link to submit to be a storyteller. So just go to our comment section. The comment reads, submit to the podcast plus learn more here. So we would love to hear from you. Even if you don't know if you'd be comfortable telling the story right now, or even if you're not quite sure how to form the story, that's okay. It's very, very simple. All stories that submit simply must be 100% true. We firmly believe that the brilliance of the human experience, for this project at least, we believe that truth is better than fiction, and it has to be firsthand. Now, to Tonyehn's point, you yourself, maybe it was your child, your parent, your lover, your best friend, or your mentor in life, but the episode and the experience, we want to hear from your perspective. We firmly believe in centering stories from the people who are experiencing them. We are at minimum looking for 5, possibly up to 10 storytellers for this first season. And one of the cool things I wanted to mention was that if you're worried about COVID and a pandemic and, I got to go into a studio, you actually don't necessarily have to. We're working with the tech director for Scranton Fringe, the wonderful Dan Kimbrough of Park Multimedia. He's going to, in tandem with him and I and Tonyehn and everyone on and Liz and everyone on our Fringe team, you could be recording safely from your own home, or you may be given the option of a socially distant recording session at a Northeast Pennsylvania audio studio. But Dan's a tech wizard, and he's designed a beautiful program where we can capture your beautiful audio over a laptop like this. And it will still sound great, and you can do it from the comfort of your home, and we'll coach you through the process. So there's no reason not to submit if you're willing to tell your story. You might be asking, I've never done this before, and that's okay. Like I said, we will work with you. Our first priority is going to be making this a welcoming and stress-free process. In addition to the stories, every episode will conclude with a little interview conversation with the storyteller and Tonyehn, representing the medical societies as our executive producer. Tonyehn, what are you... and just so everyone knows, we're aiming to release 5 episodes for our first season, and our goal is to release these starting in October, in tandem with, what month is that, Tonyehn?
National Drug Addiction.
National Drug Addiction Month, Awareness Month. And Tonyehn, so this gets released. It'll be widely distributed. We have a great marketing plan in the works. What do you hope it accomplishes, whether big or small? What would you love to see happen as a result?
For me, more than anything, it's about the stories, right? Like our stories define us. And I think a lot of times we carry around stories that may no longer serve us, or they're secret just to us. And by sharing your story, you're helping someone else. And ideally, we want these stories to be helpful, not so that you can just sit there as a voyeur, not that there's a problem with listening, even if this particular theme doesn't resonate with your personal story. But ideally, I would like for the story to resonate with other listeners and just have people know they're not alone. I foresee the future having things that are along these lines, right? Things that are slightly difficult conversations. Again, we don't want to be depressing, but there are lots of conversations that we just don't have on a daily basis with each other. So
I think something that you said, I mean, everything you said was interesting, but one particular phrase that you said really struck a chord with me. Stories are no longer, our story might no longer be serving us. What does that mean to you? What's an example of how does a story serve or not serve you as an individual?
Well, stories are a huge thing for me, as you said in my bio. I think, for instance, let's say, and this is just going to be kind of a trite example, right? But let's say growing up, you were always the smart kid. You got great grades in elementary school, whatever. And you've built this story around your life that I am the smart girl and I am supposed to do X, Y, Z with my life, or I am the smart boy, I should be a lawyer. But really, you want to be an artist. But you've told yourself this story and built this narrative around the life that you're supposed to live. And you grow up into this narrative that you've developed. And I think a lot of times people find that whatever narrative that is, and that was a very simple narrative, isn't who you are anymore. Like we grow, we develop, we change, and we stay within these very narrow confines that we've developed for ourselves without realizing you can let that story go. I don't have to live up to your expectation of me or whatever your belief in my story is. Right. And 9 times out of 10, the people around you aren't necessarily serving your story well either, because that's their perspective. But I think our story is a lot of times defined by other people's perspectives. So when you can finally step out of that and realize what your story is, what your strength is, who you believe you are, then it opens so many possibilities for you.
Wow, that's a little and a lot all at the same time. No, that's beautiful. Oh, we have a comment here from Roya Fami. Hi, Roya. She says hello to us both. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Roya's been a guest of the show twice before, actually. Thanks, Roya. We appreciate you watching. I'm sure you know people in the community, Roya, who would benefit and might be potential storytellers for this podcast. See the comment with the link. We would love and appreciate your help sharing, spreading the word. We've already gotten some great submissions for it, and we just want to see more. We want to hear from a wide, diverse range of this experiences, because it's, even though the theme is very specific, it unfortunately touches a wide spectrum of people and life experiences and background.
More than you would imagine.
Way more. It's I mean, I'll give one example, and this is going to show the immaturity of a teenager. But I mean, when I was in high school, not that long ago, not that long ago, 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I mean, it was a dark secret. You know, it was a known secret how pervasive, you know, drug use was in our community of people our own age, especially at least when I was that age, very much in like the Abingtons, Waverly, Clark Summit circles. I'm sure it was widespread. I'm not minimizing it just in that community. But it was always this narrative of like that it was, you know, it was happening in the hill section of Scranton.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, and we can also decode
all walks of life. And that's what I'm hoping this podcast can do for people, is to help them realize what you imagine the person who might be homeless sitting on the corner looking like they have a problem. They're not the people that are necessarily under treatment, right? They're not necessarily the people who are receiving medically assisted treatment. These are professionals, you know, people with very good careers. You never know what might happen that causes someone to turn a corner. So, and it's not just opioids, even though that's the theme for this particular season.
Right.
I think that happens in lots of instances. I mean, there's so many stories.
And that's the beauty of this, you know, life and ... question mark. That, I mean, it's and I think one of the really cool things about storytelling is that it's not about agreement, right? It's not even a necessary, I mean, this subject, I can't imagine there would be too much divisiveness, but it's not necessarily about agree or disagree or right or wrong. It's just about this happened. You know, as long as you're being honest and you're telling the true story, this story occurred. You know, and I want to, one thing I do want to stress, and this is in the application when you submit, even though it's a heavy subject, like if there's an element of levity to your story that you think is important to include, please include it. Like this is not all going to be one note and one tone. We're obviously taking it seriously, and it's and respectfully, but you know, it's a vast human experience. And hopefully there are at least one or two stories we're going to hear that are, and the beauty I think of a real good story is that a story never really ends. That chapter of the story might have ended. But
isn't that the same for life, right? You know, my story doesn't end when I hit end on this conversation. And with every plateau I may feel I've reached, there's still more for me to do, and there's still more change that I can make. And the beauty of stories is you can tell a story and I'll go, oh, wait, I relate, that's me.
Right.
I didn't even know that about myself, but that's me. And then I can take that little nugget and, you know, put it away and store it and use it for personal edification and move on. But that's what's nice about stories. There'll be nuggets that you can relate to, even if you don't know anyone that has had a substance disorder.
Right. I highly encourage anyone watching us right now. We do have a bunch of people tuning in. I just see the numbers bump up a little bit. If you have a thought on storytelling in general, or the power of storytelling, or if there's any questions and comments, please comment below. We'd love to hear from you. But Tonyehn, do you know one person that we both know that has lots of stories?
Ooh.
We know Amber Viola, who is going to be joining us in the conversation in a minute.
I was like,
ooh. The terror in her eyes.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, fuck me. Okay. So we have joining us in the conversation, we have the wonderful Amber Viola, and Tonyehn is staying for the conversation. Don't go away. Amber was born in Las Vegas, Nevada, to two Army officers. Amber spent most of her life moving from base to base as her parents' jobs were transferred around the country. Her final home was in Gouldsboro, Pennsylvania, where she graduated from North Pocono High School. After graduating, she spent 1 year at the University of Scranton. This was the first place where racism and discrimination was a daily part of her life. The climate on campus was very racially insensitive, and many students would comment on how she was able to get into the U of S. The very few Black students who were often told they were not allowed to attend parties or were not welcome in certain houses on campus. After completing her freshman year, Amber went to the United States Navy and completed 8 honorable years as a gunner's mate, 2nd class. Amber was often the only minority and only female in her workspace. She saw firsthand how hard it is to work in an environment where there are no minority supervisors or minorities in leadership positions. After she left the Navy in 2018, Amber moved to Scranton to complete her degree in social work at Marywood University. She is currently working on her master's degree. Amber now works as the Human Resource Director for the city of Scranton, Pennsylvania. She is the highest-ranking Black person at City Hall and only one of the few Black City of Scranton employees. Amber spent her life in predominantly white spaces and understands the importance of diversity. Amber currently lives in Scranton with her daughter and spends her time working with local community groups and educating the public, as she is about to right now, on racial bias and the need for diversity in organizations, nonprofits, and local community groups. Someone that also has a plethora of stories to bring to our virtual table. Please welcome Amber Viola. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Welcome. Goodness gracious. It's so nice to have you both on the show. So full transparency, we obviously had a little chat before we went live. And Amber, off studio, I could see that you were engaged in listening. So we've just been wrapping up our one-on-one conversation about the power of storytelling and this wonderful new podcast that we're launching with Tonyehn at the helm. Is there anything that we've been talking about that really struck a chord or you wanted to kind of touch on?
Well, I actually was stationed in Virginia and I lived in Williamsburg right before I moved here. So I used to go to William and Mary bars all the time. There was one called the Green Frog. That was like my favorite hangout spot.
The green
I love the area. The green, yeah. They had all those beers on tap.
Yeah.
It was a great town. I really wanted to go there. If I would have stayed in Virginia, that's probably where I would have actually went and finished up my degree. So, and on the storytelling side, I would just say that one of the first social workers that I ever really started listening to was Breonna Brown. And she is just such a storyteller. I was listening to her before I even knew that she was a social worker. So when I wanted to go into social work and then I found out that I was like, oh my God, this is just so perfect. Because I love the qualitative side of things and just like, people aren't just numbers. I think that numbers can get skewed and kind of presented. And if you don't have a story behind it, then, it's not telling the full story. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that right now as far as, when you hear people talk about Black on Black crime or different things, it's like, yeah, those are numbers, but you're not talking about the fact that nobody in this area has a job or the school closed and there's no buses for the kids to go to a different school. So you have kids just hanging out all day. What are they going to do? No, so I think that storytelling is honestly, it's so important. And it's one of the reasons why I became a social worker. So I thought that was really cool.
You both work within, different facets, but you both work within, basically, community support, right? And it takes different forms and manifestations. And Amber, something you just said, I think is really powerful, that we often attack, as when I say we, society, and social media and, let's be honest, white America, often attacks the symptoms and never the disease. Which is so, the irony of that statement, especially under the shadow of COVID right now, is so intense, that we often go after. I'm curious. I have a statement that I have a theory and then a question, and you can counter both of these statements. I have noticed in my own journey as a nonprofit director and leader in the nonprofit world, both here and in New York City, a lot of times I see women and people who identify as women at the helm of program. If not the heads of the organization, they're often like the heads of the human services, the heads of the programs, the heads of the community outreach. But they're not always necessarily the people at the top of their respective departments and fields. And here we have two people who are, as Amber, as your bio stated, you are the highest ranking Black person in City Hall, Scranton, period. You are the director of human resources, and Tonyehn, you are the executive director. So not only women, but as women of color. Why do you think that seems to be so common in the nonprofit sector? And just from your own experiences in Northeast Pennsylvania specifically, what is it like being a nonprofit leader in your respective organizations?
It's always interesting.
Levels, exactly. I think just from a nonprofit perspective, I think often women are viewed as caregivers, and I'm kind of oversimplifying here, but really it's that. I can definitely say when I was at and I'm thinking as I'm saying this, at the American Cancer Society, I feel like most the leadership positions that I can recall that directly affected me, let me put it that way, were held by men. And I don't really believe that until recently people recognize that happening in their own organizations. I can't say that women didn't necessarily strive to move further in their careers. Some people are happy just doing what they do, and that's fine. But speaking for myself, there was no upward mobility for me when I was at the ACS, and I'm not speaking poorly of them. That's just a fact. There wasn't space for that. The people that were in those positions weren't going, and the few that opened weren't opening for me, at least anyway.
I think a lot of times people like to have like a figurehead up more than, you know, as, oh, this is our diversity, you know, let's show her, let's show, you know, this brown person. And that's not all, you're not then the one in charge making the decisions in the background, which is kind of hard then because it's your face out there and you're not always agreeing with everything that you're being told to do or everything that's being done. But, you know, being the head of anything, obviously you get, you know, all kinds of flack. But when you add in being a woman, and then you add in being a woman of color or a Black woman, a dark-skinned Black woman, and then you add in the fact that like you're the only one, it, you know, it can you can have some moments that you have to take a step back and kind of say, wow, I never thought I'd have to have those things said to me as a director, you know, right. And things like that. And then I think the hardest thing is just trying to navigate between what do you answer to? Like, what battles are you picking and choosing? You know, what microaggressions are you deciding to address today? And what are the ones that you're just going to leave on the floor? Because at the end of the day, you're just going to be the angry Black woman. So, you know, it's always you're always just trying to strike this balance of, you know, being a good leader, being in charge, being assertive, but also not being angry, you know, not being scary, and not being intimidating.
Not too aggressive.
Not too aggressive.
I can say that there have been times in my professional career, and I believe I'm older than both of you, that I felt that I kind of had to validate my being there. And it's not like I go, oh, look, here's my degree. But it was kind of like I felt I needed to throw into a sentence that I went to William and Mary.
Right.
Why should I have to do that? But I felt I did, you know, or let people know that I've lived in multiple places and different cultures and had various experiences, you know. I'm not the first person in my family to go to college. And the fact that I feel that I have to validate myself.
Girl, I'm always I have people asking me all the time, like, oh, well, you know, what's it like to be poor? Or like, what, you know, oh, what's Section 8 housing like? Or what's it like being on welfare? Or did you know, did you go to community college? Or all these things that people have in your head. And you do feel like you have to justify and say like, well, actually, both of my parents graduated from college. I'm not first generation, you know, I'm like third, you know, I'm not.
I think I'm 6 actually, which is crazy. Like imagine people in Africa leaving the country and going someplace else to go to college, right? Like, you know, but on the other hand, I did have an employer once tell me that he felt that I could be more aggressive during meetings. And I was like, what in the hell is that supposed to mean? And I really think that he wanted me to like pop off or something. I mean, I have no idea because I was a little like, I say exactly what I feel needs saying.
They wanted you to go into this, girl. Yeah, that's what they wanted you to go into.
It was like, well, okay, sorry. Would it be appropriate to cuss you out right now? Because I don't understand what that means. Like,
I was going to say, Tonyehn, and I've known you for several years, and you are one of, if not the most professional, like, meeting person I've ever sat in a meeting with. I have never imagined there's a thought you haven't expressed.
Thank you. Like, I'm not going to be rude about it, but
actually, it's interesting that you say that because a little birdie, I was not in this room, but someone I know and trust very closely was. And it was for an organization that actually is one of the ways Tanya and I met, without detail, that they were discussing. This is like 3-4 years ago, that they were discussing that they need to add more, diversity, what's the equity, diversity, inclusion into their, which Amber, I will tag you in 3 seconds, into their programming. And the first person to speak, and I'm not going to criticize everyone necessarily who was in that room, but the first person to open their mouth and they felt comfortable saying it was, well, we don't really have the money for scholarship. It was never stated that these people couldn't afford to join the program. It was simply stated that they need, and I'll be very honest and shameful and admit my own privilege that it took me a minute to hear that statement and realize how ridiculous it was.
Right.
And it's this, and again, that, at least in my experience, and I'm sure there's a million other things that I've either willfully or ignorantly haven't seen or ignored, that it's those like as Amber, as you cited, the microaggressions. It's that insidiousness that I truly, you said before that you basically had to learn how to pick your battles. How do you do that when every day is a battle? Like, I'm asking you very honestly. I mean, there may not be a way to put that into words, but how do you, Amber, not every woman of color, not every Black woman, not every person who's marginalized in a room, but how do you, Amber, pick those battles?
I honestly, I mean, for me, I come from a place of privilege, and I come from, like I said, I've navigated white spaces my whole life. I grew up in private school, so I've always had to do it, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it now. And there's just times where it's not worth it, and you just don't say anything. And there's times that I kick myself when I go home and like, I really should have said something at that time. But a lot of times it's just, I don't know how to say it without me being the bad guy. Right. And if I can't figure that out, then I won't say anything. And there's been times I've been told, to be more assertive or things like that. And I'm like, I would love to, but at the same time, I've had that happen to where I am, and it's turned out not great.
Not good.
So yeah.
And why
so
do you always have to be that person?
Right.
Why does it always have to be? Right.
So I think I kind of have a different take on it because of just where I grew up and where I've lived. So it definitely is easier for me. I honestly could not even imagine how somebody coming from not a diverse area and saying like where it's only people of color and that's where you're from, that's where you live, that's where you're comfortable, and then you're moving into like, say, a city hall type scenario where you're one of very few. I can't even imagine how that would be, because I had friends, for instance, come to Marywood, which is where I just graduated from, and come from all minority schools and then show up there and they are just, blown away. And it's heartbreaking to watch because it's devastating. You're taking these beautiful people and somewhere they're supposed to be almost like water, like a flower, and instead they're getting stepped on every single day. And I try to do my best to talk to them through it and things like that, but it's hard, and it's, and they don't know which battles to pick. They don't know what to say. And they end up, maybe popping off at the wrong person or something. And then they end up in trouble and different things. So, it's always a learning experience. You're going to be a lifelong learner. You're going to have to try to figure it out. And sometimes you're just going to be wrong. And
it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
In your bio, Amber, you cited, before you got your degree from Marywood and before you became the human resources director and before your military service, thank you, by the way, is there, you mentioned some really negative experiences at the University of Scranton. Now, I'm not going to force you to recount those. I mean, your bio was painted up vivid. But I'm interested to know that the dichotomy of the experience of going from that 2 years later, you're now the human resources director for the city in which that university is named and sits and lives blocks away from you.
Right.
And I mean this with absolute trust in your professionalism. How do you navigate that? Because no matter how professional you are, and I know you are, no matter how experienced you are and organized as I know you are, you're still a human being. That has to be a weird, if nothing else, that has to be weird.
Yeah.
Right?
It definitely is. And it definitely, so for instance, so obviously you're at the UU party. And if I went to a party alone, I could get into a party. If I went to a party with a group of my friends who were 4 Black women and normally maybe 1 or 2 Black guys, we could not get in. I have gone to parties where I've got in for free and then brought my friends and they've had to pay, or I've had to pay. Or we've simply got told there's too many of y'all can't come in here. Or it's not that kind of party, we don't want you guys here. There were certain houses that we weren't allowed to go to on campus because, they didn't want the Blacks there. There were classes where, certain subjects would be brought up and people would flat out just be like, well, you just got in here because of affirmative action. That's why you guys are here, and different things. And yeah, I mean, it was very blatant. And for me, I think what stuck out from that experience was how young these people were, because I had experienced it from like older people, but these were people who were 18,
Right.
with me.
Right.
And I'm like, how are you this backwards? And,
because they
we're all
because
the same age.
I'm not minimizing Northeast Pennsylvania's own insidious, systemic racism, but I was just going to say, and I mean no disrespect well, I don't really care. It is what it is. To quote someone else, it is what it is. But it is for Rhode Island middle class trash to come in. And I mean because these house parties are Rhode Island and New Jersey kids who have only shopped at a Target and who decided that they're now going to become the kings and queens of Taylor and Clay Avenue, and have decided that they're going to hold court and decide who and who is not permissible when an actual person from Northeast Pennsylvania, a true Northeast Pennsylvanian I don't know how to say
right.
I mean, you went to North Pocono High School. It doesn't get I can't imagine what that experience was like and then to come into that. I'm sorry.
And then to just turn around and be, and come back here and work here. Honestly, my only thought was, I hope I can help make it better. And I hope that just my presence working for the city would help, show diversity and show that we're not a monolith. All Black people are not the same. We come from different places. Some of us like to dance. Some people, maybe they do like to rap. Some people want to be a doctor. Some people want to be a garbage man. Like, whatever it is, you can aspire to that. And it doesn't matter what you look like, and you can't just make these assumptions about people. So I think for me, that was just like the biggest thing coming back was like, I really hope that I do see some of these people around and say, hey, we can arrive too. It's not just you or and I have seen a few people.
I love the fact that you say you wanted to make things better, because me not being from the area, when I started joining boards, I was thinking, if I'm not from here, then I need to work to make this a place where I want to raise my kids. Mm-hmm. And that's why I became active with all these different community organizations, because I wanted my kids to feel comfortable here, and I wanted it to be the sort of place that I really wanted to raise my kids. So thank you for wanting to make it better.
Yeah, thank you.
I really also appreciate the beautiful irony of you weren't allowed into that party, and there's probably been an inevitable moment where you're leading a meeting that they need something from you at City Hall. I'm sorry. It's a very end night working girl movie, and the Carly Simon's soundtrack plays in the distance. No, that's amazing. And thank you for that as well. You two are having such a beautiful dialogue that I'm going to fully acknowledge. I'm just as much an audience member at this point as anyone else that's watching this. Is there a question that one of you would ask the other before I say anything else?
Oh no, I might have to save that for private conversation.
So Tonyehn, you are gonna jump ship in a minute. So Amber and I can have a quick one-on-one conversation, as you and I did, just as a courtesy. But before you go, I wanted to ask you both, and I ask this of everyone that comes on the show. A lot of times these conversations get a little serious, as they should. But we're all three-dimensional human beings. So my question to both of you is, what what's been a guilty pleasure or a simple joy or a coping mechanism that's been getting you through the dumpster fire that has been the last few months?
True crime podcast.
Ooh, okay.
A lot of it.
What's your favorite?
I love True Crime Garage. I love Crime Junkie. There's one called Serial Killers.
Love it.
That is that one goes pretty hard, and I like it. So I've been honestly trying to find more Black podcasters and like Black serial killer ones because I love true crime and stuff like that. But I've been diving into some, and that's definitely my COVID guilty pleasure is
Nice.
headphones in, podcast on.
Very nice. Tanya, how about you?
Well, I shared this with you probably about a month ago, but there is a woman that created a website called Dance Alone Together, since so many performing artists can no longer perform. And what they offer are free Zoom and Instagram live dance classes. So even though I haven't danced in over a decade, I've been able to take class with professional companies and professional dancers in the comfort of my living room. So that has really been my guilty pleasure. And the fact that it took a pandemic to relive my passion is kind of sad, but there it is.
That's awesome. Yes, you did mention that to me before, Tanya, and I thought it was cool when you and I were talking about that. You mentioned how not only did it reconnect you to the art form, but it's connecting you to these companies, in Boston and across the country that, the second you're safely able to, you're going to go see them live.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool, that was, honest to God, for me, that was, as someone who makes their living in the performing arts, a performer and administrator, that was kind of comforting to hear that like audiences are still being developed and new audiences still being cultivated, and quite possibly maybe even more than ever before. Because I'm telling you right now, the second we're safely allowed to, I'm like booking a ticket for whatever every night.
Yeah.
Very cool. Tanya, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. It means so much. This conversation was amazing. Anyone who's watching right now, please go to the comment section and just tell Tanya how wonderful she was and anything you enjoyed from our conversation. We would really, really love to hear from you. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon, Tanya. Please check out our comments for the podcast information, life and ... And we'll have Tanya back again soon. So thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. Finally, she's gone. I'm kidding.
Connor, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Jacqueline was playing with my phone. Let me.
That's okay, Miss Jacqueline. That's okay. Actually, Tanya, if you're still there, I'm going to bring you back for 2 seconds. Just pull some dead air. Hey, Tanya.
I heard that. I was looking for the comments so I could be like, I heard that.
Wouldn't that be great if it was like, okay, bye, Tanya. I absolutely can't stand her. Oh, my God. How are you? Someone who forgets the concept of live. As I often do. And Miss Amber's back. Okay, Amber, you're good?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to do that again and pretend it feels real. Oh my God, Tanya, thank you so much for being here. Bye, Tanya. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, goodness. How is Miss Jacqueline doing? How's my buddy?
She is great. She's so excited for preschool tomorrow. And she got a new book bag today, so
what is it?
She's ready to go. It's a Paw Patrol book bag.
Very nice. Fantastic. Okay. So I wanted to discuss, as the Human Resources Director of Scranton, and obviously we're not going to discuss the inner workings, just as a Scranton leader in general, I'm curious to know, where do you feel our priorities should be lying in this moment? Do you think our priorities collectively are currently there? And where would you like to see us 6 months, a year from now? And honest to God, that's a huge topic. That's a huge question. So anything that, and I'm going to preface this with, whatever you say may not be the only priorities. It may not even be the most urgent priorities. It's just what's coming to mind on the spot right now.
I think just making sure that everybody's safe, first and foremost is a big thing. We have an older population here, so that's definitely is a priority on all of our minds. It's just to make sure that we're keeping, our grandparents and stuff safe, the most that we can do. And then second to that is just trying to make sure that we have people back at work and, you know, daycares and schools open and stuff like that. So I think for me, before we can really try to do a lot of things, we have to make sure our kids are taken care of. And that has to be our priority first and foremost. So I know that's a lot on a lot of people's minds, as mine as a parent. But I was lucky enough to get Jacqueline in early at the Discovery School. So, but I know I met a parent today and he was still scrambling, trying to figure out what preschool and stuff to send his kid to and everything like that. So, so that's definitely a priority. But I think too, the mayor has really great ideas for our city, and just to try to move us into, you know, the 20th century.
The 20th century. Okay.
Yes, yes. You know, we talked before, like we have a Facebook page for the city, you know, we have an Instagram and stuff like that. And those things seem minor, but I think they're big on the scale of just trying to make sure that we're being transparent and involving people and trying to connect with people on the levels that they're used to. You know, not everybody can afford to subscribe to Scranton Times, you know, not everybody can afford a subscription and things like that. So definitely trying to reach people on a one-on-one level is really important. And I think that's definitely is like one of our goals for the city, is just to be as like transparent and open and honest as we can.
I completely agree. I think it's interesting, you know, to keep note that, you know, and this is just simply whether it was intentional or just the lack of technology, that, you know, I don't think there's ever been a time in Scranton's 150 plus year history where its executive leadership was so readily accessible. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
It could take months to make an appointment, and now you can ask a question on a Facebook live stream. And again, no system is perfect.
Right.
And get whether or not it's a full, complete answer or just, okay, we've heard you, we're going to get back to that. I think that's, I mean, for me personally.
Yeah, and the neighborhood engagements are doing the same thing, where we have these little pop-ups around and people are able to come out and talk to us and write down their questions and concerns. Because I think a lot of times people don't know who to talk to and who to ask. So they're complaining to somebody, and I'm not using complaining in a negative way, but like genuinely complaining to somebody, but it's not the right person. So nothing gets done. And then they're mad, which rightly so, because you think you're talking to the right person. And so I think this is a way to make sure that like you're getting in contact with the correct people for what is actually going on, and then trying to make changes and kind of make a difference.
Right. And I think it's so, I think something you said, I mean, a lot of it you said, but something in particular that, you know, I think that people forget that how complex even the most modest sized of cities. And again, Scranton is, you know, and we can all make all our jokes, Scranton is a city that, you know, that of how many moving parts that, you know, no matter how much you as Amber, you know, HR director may care about the various potholes in the city, that absolutely that doesn't fall under your purview. You have, no matter how much.
Right. And a pothole almost took me out last week. So, you know, I live here too. And, you know, I'm the same as, you know, other Scrantonians, where I'm driving and I'm like, okay, so let me write down where I am, because this is a mess. And I need to make sure that, you know, I tell somebody. But it's, you know, all those things cost money, and all of those things take time and people and things like that. So it's like, it's not, you know, it's not that it's not a priority. It is. It's just a long list.
Right.
But definitely, you know, let us know and tell us so that, you know, we can make sure we know where it is and know what's happening.
I wanted to mention, screen share, but I'm going to do this now in 2 seconds, if this works. I wanted to mention that you are, no, never mind. I'm not going to do that. Oh wait, Sam. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to figure out technology for the first time that I've never done on this. But if I can make it happen, it'll be really, really cool. There it is. So, in addition to your role at the city, you are an activist and an advocate. And what we're looking at right here is an incredible picture of you speaking at a Black Lives Matter rally in downtown Scranton, which I saw in person. Your beautiful, moving speech. So thank you. It was absolutely incredible. So, can you tell me a little bit about where you see your own journey and role you know, both within and outside of your role at the city of Scranton, you know, in this international movement that we find, not only do we find our country in, but interestingly enough, that Scranton, at least in the political sense, is being brought into the dialogue.
Right. I think as far as my role in this city, it's showing that the city is trying to move forward, and and be more diverse. And I want to, show little Black kids and brown kids that live in this area that, you could work for the city too. You could be human resource director. You could be mayor. You could work for Parks and Recreation, like whatever you want to do. There's an avenue for you to do it. And I just don't think that was really seen before. And so I'm very proud that I could, show that. And as far as just me personally, with Black Lives Matter, I just want to, I want people to care. There was a veteran that was killed by sheriffs like 2 days ago. And it just breaks my heart that we have so many Black veterans and brown veterans being killed by the police after they've, spent their years sacrificing for this country. And it's like, that's not even a part of the conversation when you think about veterans and things like that. And so I want people to be more aware of what's going on. And this is going to maybe sound bad, but I want people to realize, like, everybody who's getting killed by the police isn't some drug dealer thug, who is on crack or whatever people want to make up in their own head. Like, these are real people that have real lives and real careers and end up in a situation where they're unjustly killed. I've been in situations where I've had the police called on me about carrying a licensed weapon that was legally purchased because a woman was scared of me in a grocery store. And that situation could have turned out so bad in so many ways. And I want to ask people, what would you say about me? If I was killed in that situation, what would you say about me? Would you bring up something that I did 13 years ago? Would you post some terrible picture of me? Would you say that I didn't comply? Like, what would what would be your reason behind it? Because we always try to make these people out to just be such terrible people when a lot of times people are just trying to live their life and are just in a situation that they weren't, expecting. So I want to educate people. I want to make people aware of things that are going on and aware of the fact that, like, we can look different, but we can be the same and have similar interests. Black people aren't scary. We like to do the same thing. I make green bean casserole on Thanksgiving too. Like, it's fine. Right. We can all celebrate our differences, but also share that we're all Americans and, that we put our pants on one leg at a time.
And I think that you're absolutely, everything you said is 100% accurate. And when those even when those narratives might have some element of truth of, oh, well, they had this history and that history, it's just an attempt to dehumanize them.
Right.
If we don't view them as human, and I just saw this today and it made me, right before we went live, and it infuriated me, something about, Breonna Taylor had a history with drugs and and she deserved to be executed. And she deserved that. It's this, and they may not mean that. They may be saying, well, no, I'm not saying that. Well, then that's it. Then did she deserve that? Did she deserve to lose her agency as an American citizen, as a human being? And the answer is no. And it's so bizarre and frustrating. The next question I want to ask you, though, because you do use your platform so freely and so wonderfully, and by doing so, you've been getting some national level attention. My jaw hit the floor when I saw not only you, but my good friend Miss Jacqueline, I'm sure you were just there to assist her. I'm sure she was
right. She was a star.
You were just her entourage. She was like, yeah, you can come too, Mom. Right. But it was for an ad for a certain Democrat, now at the time presumptive, now nominee for the presidency. Without too many detail, how did that come to be? And then the Democratic National Convention. Can you talk a little bit about that? I like how you're like laughing casually, like, yes, that was Thursday.
Oh, it was because honestly, like, something I learned in the Navy is, they're always asking people to volunteer for stuff, and they would always tell you never want to be the one to volunteer because you don't know what you're going to get into. But I always kind of look at it as kind of like just this challenge, like, sure, what do you need me to do? And honestly, that's how I kind of like stumbled into these things. I've met people I started going to, when I first moved back and I got out the Navy and I was able to like be more politically active, I just started going to, you know, people's campaign events and rallies, and I started meeting people. And when opportunity to like phone bank or volunteer came up, I would take those opportunities. And I got asked like, hey, they're looking for, you know, female delegates and stuff. Like, do you want to go ahead and do it? Stop. And originally I was going to be a delegate for Elizabeth Warren. So, but then it didn't, you know, that didn't end up working out. And I had this opportunity. Hold on one second.
Go right ahead. While Amber is dealing with the trials and tribulations of a child and a small dog, and very kindly been on there, I'm going to embarrass her just a little bit by sharing this amazing photograph as representing a delegate for the Democratic Party. Is it coming up on the screen? Yes, it is. Look at that. Oh, can we zoom in? Oh, yes, we can zoom in. Or is that just my screen zooming in? No, it's just my screen. But zoom in. Please zoom in and view that amazing photograph of Amber, text reading Democrat delegate. Amber Viola is a veteran and a member of the LGBTQ plus community. The inspiration behind my outfit was women's suffrage, she says. I wanted the flags on my nails to be a reminder that you can be a woman and a veteran. And it was Celeste Sloman for the Washington Post. I'm going to ask a million questions about that photograph momentarily. This is a good opportunity to remind our audience listeners, you still can comment. We still have a few more minutes with me and Amber on this live conversation. Please, please, please comment below. If you have questions for Amber or just thoughts in general, that would be really, really great to hear. I'm also going to use this as an opportunity to remind everyone, hello, I'm going to remind everyone, if you're still haven't bought your tickets for Fringe Under Glass at the end of September, please do so soon. It is selling out. And for COVID safety restrictions, and working with not only the CDC, but the mayor's office, we have very limited tickets we can sell. So please, please, please go to scrantonfringe.org/tickets. Okay, Amber,
Hi,
tell me about that photograph. No,
okay,
you're doing your life.
One of my good friends, Janice, she had said, hey, they're looking to photograph some local delegates from Scranton. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm definitely down. She said, it's going to be in the Washington Post. And my mouth just dropped. And I was like, oh my God, what? And they gave me like a day to find an outfit and like get ready. And this wonderful photographer, her name is Celeste. I believe it's Sloman.
S-O-O-M-A-N, yes.
Yes. And she was just such a beautiful, wonderful human being. And she drove in from New York and came down, and we spent a few hours together towards the end of the day. And she just photographed me around different areas in Scranton. And so the one that made it in was actually right off of Green Ridge. We just found this old like yard that had a bunch of old trucks and stuff in it. And I felt like it was very representative of just the area and things like that. And so we took a ton of pictures, and that one made it in, and there was another one because I had like flag nails that also made it in. So it was really nice.
Oh, I'm
it
sorry.
was such a fun.
I'm sorry. Are you referring to perhaps this photograph?
Yes.
Oh, look at those nails. Look at those nails. Look at them. That is such a beautiful photograph. Oh my goodness. If I was you, I would totally Joan Crawford that, blow it up, and like put it over my mantle.
That's going at the funeral. That's going at the funeral.
It's a powerful moment when you've taken your obituary photo.
Right.
That's amazing. What was it? Tell me. I mean, it's probably super exciting that it's happening to begin with, but I mean, it's probably, as you said, it happened really quickly. It's in the Washington Post. I mean, when that first big feature, first of all, I want to comment, if anyone hasn't been in downtown Scranton recently, I was in a walk with my mother about a week or two ago, and I was asked by a Danish, Israeli, and Spanish, like from Spain newspaper within like a 1 square block radius. Right. There was like a UN journalism conference, and I talked to one, and the other two, I was like, I don't feel comfortable. This is getting ridiculous. But when the first big feature in that original Washington Post video and article, and they gave a shout out to Scranton Fringe, which I'm very grateful for, to the several people who they talked. They never spoke to us. That was the cool thing. They never talked to us.
Really? They didn't talk? Because I figured they did, because I was like, oh my God, got her.
I'm so thrilled. No, they spoke, I think Julie Cohen from the university and Maureen McGuigan. I think they talked to a lot of people, and the things that multiple people mentioned, they were, this must be something. The person who I want to give a shout out to Andrew Cotillo, who's working for I think he's working for the Democratic Voting Organization here in Pennsylvania now. He actually, little fun fact, Andrew worked at the Obama-Biden administration as a staffer for quite some time. And the photograph, the very famous photograph meme of the first day of the Trump administration when they were moving in, and that shot from Harry Potter when like Voldemort walked into Hogwarts, the comparison, he's in the background like, it's my favorite thing in the world. So I'm not saying his last name, but you know who he is. So he sent me the article. Was very, very excited. But so I know that little, we were like jumping up for joy by just one mention in one sentence. I mean, you have your image and narrative being told in the Washington Post. What was it like?
I did. So actually, it like I didn't even know, because they told me, they're like, okay, well, we'll let you know when it gets in there. But I think that what ends up happening is it's just so crazy. You know,
Right.
you have the photographer submitting pictures, and then the journalist submitting their article or whatever they're going to write about. Those two things kind of come together, it hits the editor, and then it kind of just, it may make it today, or they may push it till, Wednesday or something. So
Right.
when I kind of found out, it was like midnight. And I find out that like, oh, my picture's out, and I'm just screaming in my room,
That's
freaking
incredible.
out. Well,
That's
and then
incredible.
like the Washington Post outed me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be in there.
Oh my gosh,
So,
Amber, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean. I hope
it was fine. I just wasn't expecting it, and so it was very like. One of my friends was like, of course you would be outed by the Post. And I was like, of course.
Listen, I think that get your sunglasses and like a tumbler and a sticky and like
Yep.
just be like, I was outed by the Post.
I'm ready. Yep.
It's amazing. No,
I'm coming for Out Magazine now.
And then next month we'll get you canceled.
Right.
Those nails aren't real. No.
I'll know I have arrived.
Did Miss Jacqueline see the picture?
She did. She wasn't there with me when I was getting for the pictures done, but she saw them, and she definitely was like, "Oh, mommy!" She wanted flag nails too. So I took her to the guy who did my nails was in at Montage, and at I think it's Glamour Nails. And he did such an amazing job. And I went in and I was like, okay, so think 4th of July, just like as extra as you can like fit on a hand. So I was so happy and so proud to like go back and show him. I was like, your nails made the Washington Post. And Jacqueline wanted little flag nails, but her nails are too little. So
I'm sure now she has a Paw Patrol backpack. She's fine.
right. Her nails were hot pink, so she was happy.
Now,
yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Democratic. So fanfare aside, Democratic National Convention, not only an unprecedented historic election, but an unprecedented historic, method to present it because of COVID.
Right.
You were supposed to be there, correct?
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about that process and doing it virtually? And you mentioned before something about you had to take work off because you couldn't.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously, I work for the city, and you can't, ever do anything campaign wise, during city hours or anything like that. So I took 2 days off during the week so that I could actually be at the convention for the last 2 days, because I was hosting a watch party with some of our congressmen and Senator Casey. And so I wanted to have like time to prepare for that and just to be involved. Like every morning we had PA Dems breakfast caucus. So that was always really fun to do. And you'd see, people cooking or, having their coffee and on the run or different things. So it would have been nice to be there in person, because it's been like my dream to go to one of these.
Next time.
I was telling people, I was like, it's like nerd politic, like spring break. I would just be in heaven, like with everybody. So, but I think they did such a great job. I felt so included. They mailed us like these amazing swag bags that had tons of like DNC stuff in it and everything. And we got a bunch of signs, a bunch of pins. We got our DNC credentials that we would have worn. We got t-shirts, different things. Like each state too would kind of send their own variation of it. So some states honestly did way better than others. Pennsylvania, you did good. But so that was really fun, and being a part of like, you know, hearing the roll call and hearing all of the number of delegates who voted and stuff, and just knowing that that was me, you know, I was part of that, and it was such a proud moment, and I was
so happy for you, and you'll
I
get
was
there.
so happy, yeah, and you know, it's one of those little things that like I went to the RNC in 2000. It was in Philadelphia. And I remember being so excited being there and thinking in my head, like, I just want to live in DC. And I don't know if I didn't want to be president, but I definitely wanted to be like a congresswoman.
Mhm.
And that little thought that was in my head that long ago, you know, and it's now, you know, however many years later that it came true, you know, that I got to experience that and stuff. So that was just,
Would you ever
it was so
consider?
humbling.
Would you ever consider once you've explored this chapter to its full potential? Are you still considering elected office?
Yeah, I definitely am. Definitely.
Very cool. Very cool. Question for you from the DNC, just your personal opinion. What was your favorite speech? If you or maybe two. You can pick your top two.
Okay, so I did not know a lot about Joe Biden.
Mhm.
So hearing Dr. Biden speak was so great. I thought she was beautiful, and the fact that she taught while she was in the White House like blows my mind. And she was just such a beautiful person. And honestly, when they were telling the story about how like she came and healed the whole family, girl, I was in tears. I was like, oh my God.
I know.
But so that definitely was one. Obviously, anything that either Obama ever says out of their mouth is, I'm there for it.
I will say my favorite tweet from the convention was Cory Booker, who said, "Tonight reminded me how much I missed Obama and her husband."
Right. Exactly.
That was,
that was great. Yeah.
No, it was a good set of speeches. You gotta give it to her.
It really, and Kamala Harris, she is just so smart, and
yes,
I love when she speaks, and I can't wait for more hearings, girl. I'm here for it all the way.
Yeah, I really felt for her in that moment because she was doing a fabulous job, but it occurred to me that you know, despite the fact that everyone up there, you know, isn't enjoying the live energy. I mean, of everyone in that room, it was her first real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, First Lady Obama and President Obama and Vice President Biden and Dr. Biden, they've all had the national stage before.
Yeah.
And it was, I felt bad. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I mean, she did a great job, but I was sorry that she didn't get to feel that full moment. The thing they did with the screens was cool when like she was done and she walked off. And I will say, I thought it was really cute and really not necessary, but like so awkward when her and her husband and Vice President Biden and Dr. Biden were like 10 feet away. Like,
oh yeah.
I respect the message they're sending. I respect what they were doing.
But obviously, when you're standing far apart from people, it looks weird. You know, especially when there's only 4 of you.
Right. Right. And you could tell there was a moment of like the natural human is kicking in, like,
you're like, oh, come hug me. And
right. Like, no, if anyone else have any thoughts on that, please comment below. We're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes. Amber, is there anything we didn't get to talk about tonight that we were either hoping to, or maybe something we touched on and then moved on quickly from? Like, if there's one last thing to discuss tonight, what would you want it to be?
I think for me, just I got to go to Bethel AME today. They had a like rally at their church, and it just really made me think about how I feel like, you know, Scranton is in all these separate parts, and I just really want us to come together, and I want us to have a more diverse like working force here in the city. Yes. So I definitely have been encouraging people of color, like, you know, apply for the Scranton PD, apply for Scranton the fire department, you know, apply for, you know, public works jobs, apply for city hall jobs. Like, definitely there's definitely departments even in the midst of all of this that, you know, we still take in resumes, we still take in applications, and if you guys don't apply, then we, you know, it's hard for us to find you. So I think it definitely my little pitch is just, I want to bring in more people. I want to bring in younger people
Mm-hmm.
I want to start, having kids from the university stay here and come and be proud of their city and
Right.
work for their city. And so that's definitely something that's really close to my
Like
heart. And
like Dr. Rothschild. I mean,
yes.
total transplant, total professional, absolutely.
Yes.
And if someone wanted to get a hold of you, I'm gonna put your email address on the screen, but I have to type it in. Not prepared. If someone wanted to connect with you for any of the things we've talked about tonight, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So if it's for like anything to do with human resources or the city, they can contact me at Aviola at scrantonpa.gov. If it's anything that's personal or to do with like political stuff, please don't email me there. You can email me on Amber Viola. I actually have a website, so you can just go to amberviola.com and you could send me a message in there and put your information down and stuff like that. Or you can find me on Instagram, Amber__Viola, or on Facebook, Amber Viola.
That's perfect. I'm going to put up on the screen. We're just going to say go to amberviola.com or find on Instagram. And because if they contact you through your website and it happens to be a city matter, that's easier to forward account than over. I understand. So please contact Amber for anything we've talked about tonight. We do have a viewer on Twitch. Interesting. Last final call to comment on anything. The rally you mentioned at, Bethel AME, was it in regard to, a million things, but was it in regards to, into something specific? And what was the process like?
It was like a peaceful justice peace rally. Just getting people together and focusing on the community, and just I think that people are tired and people are hurting and people really just want to come together and things like that, and have a sense of like a general location that they can kind of come. It was very nice. I don't go to the church, but I felt very included, and it was very sweet for them to invite me to come, and it was very positive. And of course, food and little kids running around and stuff like that. So it definitely, it was such a nice experience, and a nice Sunday. And so I want to see more of that. I want to see more of those things continuing to happen in our area, because the things we've had have been beautiful and have been so peaceful and so wonderful, just seeing all the people come together. So it's been nice.
Right. I think that's a beautiful way to end the evening. Thank you so much, Amber. Really been lovely having you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning in.
I really appreciate what you were doing with raising money to help people while they're, not having jobs right now, especially people in the arts. I think that's a big thing, and I'm so proud of you for doing that and taking the initiative to really step up and say, like, I see a problem and I'm gonna fix it. I never got to really talk to you about it, but I had seen you posting it, and I just felt like, wow, that he's really trying to help these people on his own, and I don't know what your financial situation is during this or whatever, but I was like,
I'm just,
it might not be great, but he is out here working for the people. So thank you so much, because I'm sure that really means so much to a lot of people, because we don't, like, the arts are like closed, right now. So it's definitely hard.
Thank you. First of all, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. That I can tell the sincerity. Thank you. I want to give credit to a lot of people, Liz Bohan and my team, Glynis from the Black Scranton Project, the people from the Marketplace, Kristen from Meals on Wheels. That fund was, even though I did start it, we started it through Fringe, but we had kind of an oversight committee to keep it above board and keep it honest. And I'm very grateful for them spreading the word. We've distributed almost $10,000.
Oh, wow.
All state in Northeast Pennsylvania. Big thank you. We actually, I want to mention this to you. If you are in need, we can't promise we're going to be able to, because we have a wait list already. But if you go to scrantonfringe.org/support, we can still, you can still apply for the funding. You have to be a Northeast Pennsylvania resident, or you have to demonstrate that you work often in the arts and the creative arts industry. And that umbrella term is wide. We've had lots of tattoo artists, hairstylists, anyone in that arts culture.
My tattoo artist just started tattooing again, so I am very excited about this.
Talk about a difficult industry. But yes, to be transparent and fair, if you're in the hair industry or the tattoo industry, priority is a little shifted away just because you've been able to reopen, which we're so happy for. But still, check it out. But while you mentioned that, though, when you were mentioning before about having more diversity and inclusion at the city level and get involved, I wanted to mention and I'll post a comment later again. I posted on my own personal page last night. The Lackawanna County Arts and Culture Department, which I should have talked to Tonyehn because she sits on the Arts Council. They have a new grant that opened. I think they're calling it Creative Communities. If you go to LackawannaCounty.org and go to the Arts and Culture page, I'm sure you can find it much faster than I'm ever going to. But it's a really cool because not only can individuals apply for up to a certain amount, but if nonprofits and municipalities actually combine forces, the amount of potential funding goes up as high as $20,000.
Oh, wow.
It's really cool. They're taking their events budget from 2020, since obviously they haven't been able to have, and they're not going to have any events. And they're applying it to this new. It is completely separate from other funding. It has nothing to do. It won't jeopardize anything. We're applying together with Black Scranton and Artists for Art. But there's plenty of, I mean, not plenty, but there is resources to go around. It's for some kind of public art project, whether live or physical or digital. So if you're an individual artist, especially if you're an individual artist that represents a voice that's not often heard in our community, please, please, please go apply. And if you have any questions or need help, just reach out to us at Fringe. Even if it's not through us, it can't be through us, unfortunately, but we would still love to give you some pointers on how to write the grant. And so would Maureen at the county. Please reach out to them, take advantage of that funding. If you're a resident of Lackawanna County and or you and your organization do work in Lackawanna County in some way, it's your public money to use. So please, please, please.
Definitely. And you never know what you're going to get, honestly. So you kind of just have to go for it. No,
and you never know. And also the cool thing about it is that it's never, in my opinion, and I know, and this application is very simple. It is due September 15th. It's a very quick turnaround. So they kept it pretty simple. You also never know when you get that idea out of your head and put it into a document, put it on paper, maybe you won't get the funding, but you're one step closer to making it realized because you've put it down, you've done the budget, you figured it out.
And now your idea is also in other people's heads and you might not have got it, but there's been so many times that I may not have gotten something, but I went for it and in the back end ended up getting something else because the people who were part of the process didn't select me, but selected me for something different or thought I could be used in a different way. So always go out for it. You never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to read your proposal or read your grant application, who, might say, hey, it's not going to work for this, but I got you. So definitely.
Very cool. You're absolutely right. That's all I had to say. On that, it's almost 8:30. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Please tune in next week. I'm going to be taking a weekend off, but we will have Simone Daniel back, who is going to be doing. She's going to be talking about lots of different things. She is going to be checking us back in on us with the crisis in Lebanon, as she is a proud Lebanese American and a Lebanese American artist. So she's going to be talking about the situation there. But she's also,
food is amazing.
Simone is absolutely amazing. And she's going to be talking to some of our Fringe Under Glass artists. So last reminder, go to scrantonfringe.org/tickets, buy your Fringe Under Glass tickets before they sell out. We have amazing groups like the Black Scranton Project at Gaslight Theater Company and the Pop-Up Studio and Simone and Nicole Nichols and Mostly Opera and some other amazing artists. Probably your only chance to see live theater safely behind glass windows this year in Scranton. I want to thank Tonyehn and Amber again, and to everyone else, have a wonderful night.